I watch these animal documentaries all the time, and you see that they have like four cubs, and two of them make it, like because it's tough to be raised as like a baby fox or whatever. I just wonder how I made it, man. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
just how,
Yeah.
how did I make it?
There were questionable moments.
Questionable
That's for sure.
decisions, absolutely. Hey everybody, Matt McGaw here, DSO Compass Off Script. So I don't have a guest today because my guest is going to be my co-host from now on. Being the only child that I am, I guess I just wanted some company. I wanted that brother, that colleague, to go through some topics that are on the mind instead of just an interview style. So it's pivoting it a little bit, and I'm going to be doing this once a month. Clayton, think makes sense for us.
Once a month.
Yeah, so Clayton Russell, he was the inaugural guest of DSO Compass Off Script, and he's going to be my co-host along the way. The idea here is to have topics once a month that are interesting in the dental landscape. We bring them up, we talk about them, we give our opinion, where we see how this affecting the market, et cetera, et cetera. So I think why you should tune in, why this is interesting is, from my perspective, I've got a ton of experience, most of which in healthcare and dental on the vendor side of the business. I work a lot directly with DSOs, with private practice on technology adoption and how to evaluate, et cetera. But from Clayton's perspective, I'll let you talk about maybe why it's interesting for others to listen to our opinions as well, Clayton. But from my perspective, is you've got both sides of it. You've got experience on that vendor side. We've talked about this, and you've got experience as an executive in the DSO world. So some of these topics are going to affect us in different ways, and I think coming together, providing some opinions and insights to the market, we hope is beneficial and helps people make decisions in the market.
Yeah,
So yeah,
for sure. I mean, dental lifer, 23 plus years here. So in a really interesting position now, having, like you said, been on both sides. So yeah, I think we just want to bring that perspective that maybe doesn't get put into a podcast, maybe doesn't get talked about quite as often here, and make things really interesting for everybody.
absolutely. I guess first of all, how you doing, man? You good?
Doing good. Busy as ever, but doing good, man. How about you?
Good, man. We just got so this is, I don't know what's the date today, the 16th. Yeah, my eyes are going. The 16th, we got our first snow here in Park City, so.
It's wild. 74 and sunny here in the Carolinas. So
I was just in Dallas last week for the DEO, and it was like 90. So
yeah,
we don't do things more. Good.
No DSO Compass hat today, huh?
I did it
because Compass hat.
I did it for you. I knew you haven't seen me without that hat in about 2 months, so I figured I'd put my makeup on and get ready to go. So, well, cool, dude. I appreciate you doing this. I'm excited about talking to you about things we have today and then obviously down the road. A few topics that came to mind that make sense to put on the docket per se for today. I think first things first, let me just go down the list. There's a new law in California. We are not lawyers. We would never pretend to provide legal advice. Maybe we can have that disclaimer here now. So anything we say about this new law in California is just our interpretation of it. So I'm sure lawyers can blow us up. That's one, and how that'll affect DSOs and MSOs. I think it's an interesting conversation. The public versus private conversation within the DSO landscape is an interesting one as well. With Park Dental coming out and saying that they're gonna go public, and then some others saying the opposite. Clayton, you've got an article coming out in Group Dentistry Now about vendor promises and pilots. I think you and I have had probably the conversation around pilots so many times. So that one as well.
I think it sparked the article, was an initial conversation that you and I had.
Yeah, absolutely. So that one, along with, if we get to it, I think there's some interesting stuff going around practice management systems and data integration and how all that works. So those are the topics for today. And I think first things first, the California law. I'm just going to read a little bit because I don't want to get this wrong and butcher it, but it passed.
Probably smart.
Yeah. Gavin Newsom, regardless of your political beliefs, Gavin Newsom passed a law, two major bills actually, over private equity and hedge fund involvement in healthcare, including dental and DSOs. It's going to involve managed service organizations and other unlicensed entities working with medical or dental practices. I think the broad impact is MSO, in quotes, now includes DSOs, potential RCM vendors like SaaS platforms, marketing firms, AI analytics tools, anything tied to like the business portion of the DSO, so not the clinical part of it. So things that are on the business side, that's what the law implies. So it's AB 1415 and SB 351 for all of you legal junkies that want to sit down in front of that bill. Go ahead and read it. Maybe I'll kick it to you first, my friend. Any just general thoughts, your interpretation of it, the effects of it, just what your overall thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, my initial thought was it's California doing California things, right?
So true.
I mean, they love to put restrictions where they can and kind of clamp down where they can from that governmental perspective. Like you said, no need to go into get too political on this, but I go back and forth. I mean, I've read through it. I've read some different perspectives on it. I've heard some people speak on it. Go back and forth on, how impactful is it truly going to be? Are people going to sort of be able to get around some aspects of this? California's always been an interesting place to try to enter in the DSO space. There's a couple states like that have some different interpretations where there's hesitations on the part of the DSO to even enter into those states. So I think this might give some people pause even more there in California, and just how much bandwidth a DSO can have and how much impact they can really have over an acquisition. So it's an interesting spot, man. What are your thoughts on it?
I mean, I'm thinking there might be a group of folks in management right now within a DSO that were considering, an LOI in California that might be like pumping the brakes.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? This is a nice steady reminder that we should stay away from that area. We've got folks in our network that have worked at Heartland, and which I didn't really realize, out of, gosh, how many offices they have, like 1,800 or something at this point.
Yeah, something.
And 0 are in California. Like they don't want to mess with it.
I think it's a nice steady reminder that sometimes the control isn't in your hands. So what about if they're not under LOI? What if they're already there in California, and things can change and laws can change and amendments can be made to those laws that are already in place, that things can shift, and you have to be able to adapt with that. So yeah, I think that's probably pretty spot on. There's definitely going to be some more legal analysis before anybody
Totally
enters into that state, and maybe that's what they want.
Like, exactly. It's like, do they have lawyers on payroll that are getting greased over there in California? Because I feel like that's the only people that are going to win here are the lawyers, because this is going to be a lot of red tape that DSOs are going to have to sift through. The part that's interesting to me that we've talked about before is, like, how is this going to affect the back of the office technology vendors, back of the office technology service providers? Because the way I'm interpreting it is that they could very well, these RCM providers and companies that are supporting the inner workings of an organization, not the clinical care, they could be considered under like the MSO, like, broad umbrella. And if that's the case, like, what kind of reporting are they going to have to send out? Like, what kind of compliance are they going to have to be under? It's just going to fracture, or at least provide more work to the DSOs themselves, the MSOs themselves, along with the vendors, and provide more compliance that's going to have to be on top of it. It just feels like more work.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was alluding to. Is it going to be kind of business as usual, or how impactful do they really plan dig in. As the dust settles on these types of things, where do the lawmakers plan to take this? I think could get really interesting. And why did they feel like this was needed, I guess, as well in that state? I mean, was there a big problem that they solved for here, or is this simply an opportunity to kind of extend their reach into this sector? Who are they protecting here really with it? They can't protect themselves, and but that's I think that's a state that's a little more prone to that, right? It's a little more they want to kind of dig their fingers into all aspects like that. It'll be interesting if any others follow suit.
They've got to be thinking from their perspective. I think you and I are both pretty good at least really trying to dive into the other side of things. From the perspective of the lawmakers, I have to think that they truly believe that private equity and hedge funds are dictating care. And they want to make sure that these companies are not dictating care. I think that's the first thing. And that's probably the main thing.
They misguided in that. That's just not, what I've seen in the market where the hedge fund or the private equity is actually guiding.
I think if you
care.
look at,
I think everybody understands that's a line you don't cross, and I just have not seen that be an issue. That's what I'm kind of wondering. What do they believe they're solving for there?
Yep, it's got to be that, and I think it just comes down to typical, governance. They're not going to understand the market like you and I are going to understand the market, and if you don't have people in those positions that really dive in and figure out like where the gaps are and what private equity is doing, because I could make the argument that private equity really provides more access to care, with more resources, et cetera. So.
Yeah, I think that argument could be easily made. There's people on both sides of the fence.
100%.
Right, but there are a lot of examples that I think we could do an entire show on exactly what you just said. Access to care, ease of access to that care, advanced technologies becoming more readily available with the injection of private equity. I think there's a lot of examples there. I haven't heard a lot of rationale, a lot of legal rationale or otherwise behind why they did what they did here. So you got to let the dust settle on these things and
100%.
see how far they really plan to take this.
Yep, it's going to affect people. I'm interested to see how it affects, in my space, the tech focused space. So if you're a tech vendor, founder, you probably already know about this, and what red tape are you going to have to go through? You definitely are going to have to look into it. And we certainly have legal experts within our network that are not on the show today. That is not us, like I said. Remains repeating. So
might be the guest on episode 2.
Yeah, maybe.
Depends on where they take this.
But look into it if you're on the vendor space to make sure. Use it as if I'm thinking about my biz dev hat, use it as an opportunity to engage with clients and understand and work together and partner about figuring out a solution that makes the best sense. So,
I think that'd be smart.
Yeah, lemonade out of lemons. So, all right, enough on that. So this is an interesting topic for me too. I don't know a ton about it really. Like I know a ton about it, but not as far as like the true effects of it. Like the public versus private debate. You have your privately funded DSOs, you have your private practice, right, that are just owned by the doctor. Then you have your PE-backed companies and your companies your DSOs that are going public. Like the Dentalcorps of the world was one that is an example of one that went public. And recently there's one that did is claiming they want to go public, and they're in the process of raising $20 million for a growth expansion. That's Park Dental Group. Dentalcorp themselves was the one I referenced before. It's like they actually went back and are now private. So it's a shift back towards privatization, and you have Park moving forward. So start with you again, brother. Like, what do you think about this? Like, do you have strong opinions either way?
It's been really interesting to watch, hasn't it? I mean, I think there can be a long gap and runway between kind of stating that you're going public and actually moving to IPO. So we'll see where that develops and where that gets there. It was an interesting group to hear that from. Probably might not have been at the top of my list if you were going to have me name groups that I thought could potentially file for IPO to go public. The Dentalcorp was a little surprising. I think I followed that stock for a long time, and just was a really interesting case study.
It was down, wasn't it?
It was down. I mean, it's kind of been hovering. It's been hovering. I mean, until this news came out, right? And then it jumped. So if you got in before that, I didn't see this coming. I don't have any insider information like that. We can disclose that as much as we can disclose it. We're not legal analysts here, but
true story.
I just liked watching it and reading about them. I thought it was really ambitious. I get what they were kind of trying to do with that and what the goals were. I think I do anyway, from the outside looking in. It was down from where it initially was, but it was up a little bit from 6 months, a year, 2 years ago when it was around 5, 6. I think it dipped to, and it was kind of hovering around 8 for a while, and then jumped more towards the price that they're taking it private at. So they're an interesting one. I mean, to go back, when it looked like almost maybe there could be a waterfall effect of others going public. Could this work? Is this a business strategy? To now, probably the biggest example that we had, maybe the only example, now going back to privatization. I think says something at least about the difficulty of maintaining a public company versus operating as a private company.
Yeah. I'm going to mention Marla Smith because she's the one that actually brought this topic to our attention.
Sharp.
Well, you and I were chatting about it, but her insight was interesting about being a public company, and I own stock in companies, right? I'm sure you probably do too, and there's quarterly earnings calls, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of times I've worked for an organization that I know the quarterly earnings calls, they seem like, just to put it bluntly, like there's some fudge into the numbers that are going on, right? I just don't think this is the space for that. Like you really have to be transparent. And then she didn't say that Park was going to fudge the numbers. I don't want to misspeak for her, but she brought up the difference between a publicly traded company having those quarterly earnings reports versus a privately held company where you can kind of control that narrative a bit internally. Like if you've got 50 doctors that hear an earnings call that start to freak out like that, do you want that influx of complaints and that noise inside your organization? Is it worth it on that end? I think that's an interesting point too. I don't know if you have thoughts in general on that.
Well, I mean, I've worked at a few publicly traded companies in the past. It's a sea change. I mean, I think the toughest thing would be the adjustment from going private to public and the disclosure, the additional eyes, the ability for anyone in the public to gain a little piece or a large piece of your business, and then potentially have a say in what you're doing depending on the size of that piece, right? Mm-hmm. So you're kind of beholden to investors, as are private companies, but just in a very different way. So no, I think she was spot on with that analysis of it, and it's not. I don't think it's an easy endeavor by any means. I think parts of it can look very enticing, but then there's a lot of other pieces. There's the pros, and then there's the cons, and it seems like in this case the cons outweighed the pros, and they went ahead and made the decision to take that offer and take it back to being private.
I mean, what are the pros? I mean, the pros are obviously influx of cash.
The biggest pro, yeah.
Yeah, it's a big pro. I would think being public, besides the earnings reports and having to be more transparent about that, you probably inside the organization, I would think, have the ability to make moves without necessarily in some cases asking for private equity's blessing because you don't have private equity to worry about. You've got your investors that you have to answer to, but throughout that quarter, like I feel like you might be able to make moves quicker potentially based upon where you think the business is going to go. Do you think that's the case? Do you think that's a pro?
I've always leaned to the side of most the private organizations can move a little quicker. I think incentivizing your people, there's some really different options that come along with enticing new talent or retaining the talent that you have on those pieces. I think there's a momentum build that can happen too if you're correctly positioned in the market, and you have a couple of those good quarters and you start to gain some awareness. I mean, I always thought that experiment there could have went differently if maybe it would have transitioned over into the kind of the public lexicon of, hey, there's this dental organization that's really showing some strong results or strong potential. I mean, it's so much of a stock is based on potential growth too. So if something could have caught fire there, and maybe an influx of capital would have happened from that, and you would have seen that jump, and there would have been more there to go and kind of build the future on. I think maybe that could have looked differently. Maybe it looks differently moving forward for some other group that tries it. But in this case, we just haven't seen it right in the dental world. I think your first point of maybe there's a reason we haven't seen it. I mean, maybe something has to be looked at differently for that to happen here, or maybe it's just not our model.
I've definitely heard rumblings of it over the past few years. Hey, we're thinking about going public, but it just doesn't happen. I didn't hear rumblings at all about Park making that decision at all. I think your optics point is interesting. Like if a company does go this route and they start to see success based upon it, the rumblings across the industry can certainly be a positive. It's not really something I've thought about, because I know that we hear things like last year, all the companies that were in receivership, all the DSOs were in receivership. They were private companies, but we were hearing the rumblings. And now if you have a company within a DSO landscape that is public and excelling, it could have a domino effect, I think, like you're saying, which would be a positive for influx of cash in the industry, a positive for the overall momentum of the space. That's super fascinating to me.
It could get interesting if that were the case. I mean, we seem so far away from that, right? I mean, we just saw what the two examples that we're talking about here, especially the Dentalcorp example of kind of pulling back, or just making that shift, I should say, not necessarily pulling back into privatization. I think it seems like we're a long way away from somebody doing it and really doing it successfully in a way that others take notice. And we can be a bit of a Me Too industry where I think people look around and say, oh wow, look what AI's doing. Oh, look what these RCM functions are doing. Look at the success they're having. Let's go try to replicate that. I think every industry has that, but it just seems like we're far away from that 100%. Day.
Yeah, it's when I talk to folks, and you probably do as well, but I know you do, on the earlier stage side of things, the emerging technology side of things, I tell them this is a jump off your bridge industry. So if they jump off the bridge, I'm jumping off that bridge too. There's not a lot of clarity and understanding why we're jumping off this bridge, but hey, these guys are doing it, so I'm full send off that bridge, bro. Let's go.
That takes me back. That takes me back there. That's some old motherly sayings there.
Did you have
if your friend Mike's gonna jump off a bridge, would you do it too? You're right though. You're right.
Speaking of that, did you have I remember this cliff that we all used to jump off of as teenagers. Did you guys have that growing up? Did you have that one spot that you ascended it off the?
We didn't have it where I grew up, but definitely there were some college years and after experiences there in the mountains of North Carolina, some different waterfalls, some different rock quarries, where probably some different bridges. Probably jumped from entirely too high of heights than
Absolutely.
Physically should have. I don't know. Maybe my back's still a little sore
I
from
mean,
that. What about you?
I watch these animal documentaries all the time, and you see that they have like 4 cubs, and 2 of them make it, like because it's tough to be raised as like a baby fox or whatever. I just wonder how I made it, man. Like,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
how did I make it?
There were questionable moments.
Questionable decisions, absolutely. Anyway, episode 2, questionable decisions.
Yeah. Let's dive in.
Well, cool, man. That's interesting. I think that's going to be one to follow for sure. I'm going to definitely be following it. One that I talked about here in the beginning too is a conversation you and I had a lot about. And I might let you talk through this one because I think you've got an article coming out, but about the relationship between vendor, partner, however you want to say it, and the DSO, and how that integration, promises, partnership, pilot relationship looks like. What's that about? Maybe you can chat through that.
Yeah, that one's interesting. Like I said, it kind of sparked from just a personal, private conversation you and I were having, just about kind of what I'm seeing on the general landscape of dental these days. I mean, we've alluded to it a few times, just the number of entries into the space, and I love it, and I love the innovation. I love a lot of the disruption. In a lot of ways, it is needed. It was needed. So I love people coming in and trying to do something different, look at it through a different lens. But I think the flip side of that is what comes there, and sometimes to no fault of their own, right? You have to have a little bravado as a new business. You have to state what you plan to do and when you plan for those things to be ready. And we just see that a lot. And it's unfortunate at times if you feel like you've intentionally been misled. Sometimes, like I said, it might be unintentional. But kind of this, the article is all about promise fatigue. Pilot fatigue is certainly real. And I think we want to try to avoid that at all costs here within our world. But the promise fatigue of, just what you can do, how well things are going to integrate, the timeline of when things are going to actually arrive versus something that you're working on or is still in concept or is 75% of the way there. So really the article is just going to talk about that and the transparency needed and, maybe give some examples and give some ideas around a better route to lay out a plan from the beginning, what we plan to accomplish. Here's a realistic timeline for it, and we're going to stay in constant communication whenever any of that changes.
I think one thing that might be interesting for those to listen to is your perspective on those promises that are made in the sales process and how those promises not being reality affect your business. Like when someone comes in, I'm a vendor, I say that I can integrate with this platform. This is a bad example, but I can integrate with let's just say Denticon, and the integration's right back. And I promise something that's going to be ready for game time, and it isn't. How does that affect you? Who does that affect in your team? What is that cascading effect across the business? I think those might not understand.
Yeah, it reverberates. It makes it really, really difficult on everybody, all the way down to the people that we're constantly thinking about in those offices, right? The office manager, the dental assistant, the clinicians, the doctors and hygienists, the regionals who manage those offices and ultimately have to bear a lot of whenever a new platform is kind of placed onto the business. So this is a trust business. I mean, this is a business that each side. It's kind of going back a little to the California law. It's no one can operate in this business without having the trust of their offices and the people that work within them and the people that manage things on a regional or a national level, really. So it damages that. It damages it, and it not only makes that initiative that platform even more difficult to come back around whenever that is maybe ready and say, okay, now we're actually ready here. Sorry, we had it wrong before. That can happen, but if it happens too often, you just really erode that trust that you've worked so hard to build up, and it definitely makes the next thing difficult, and it's just slows you down, and it's just not a good look all the way around.
The next difficult thing too is interesting too, because so many leaders have been burned by the previous promises, and the impact that has on new vendors that aren't promising. They're actually being realistic in how they're presenting their product. There's still a level of skepticism that probably exists based upon previous conversations and experiences you've had if you've been burned. Like, I think that effect is one that we should think about more in the space, because do you think, are a lot of the promises sometimes even the reasons why you're going with the platform? Do you think they're just saying these things to win the business? Like, I feel like there's a mix of that. Maybe they are, but in a lot of cases, maybe it's like, dude, you shouldn't even have said that. Like, why did you promise that so early? You
shouldn't have even said that. Yeah. Like, people get excited. People get ahead of themselves. It's hard to know what the intentions are. There's certainly, having that sales and business development background in my career, there's bad apples.
You can root through the BS real quick, I bet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it certainly helps. And we need some checks and balances in place. Every organization does, to be able to root through that. And most can see through that, but a lot are still misled. And there's so much new promise. There's so much new tech and new pieces to this industry that are coming every single day. And people want these solutions, and we've wanted these solutions for a long time in a lot of different areas of the business. So when someone comes along and can promise that, it's the old snake oil salesman, right? I mean, you hope it's not that. You hope these are real solutions that can solve real problems. But some of it bleeds into that, where, they want the business. They're trying to establish their own business and a case for their business, whether that's to fundraise or gain momentum on their own, of their own. But yeah, it can come at a cost. It can definitely come at a big cost, and it hurts those that come after them. It's going to hurt them, and if their name sort of, it's a big industry but a small industry. People talk, and as their name might get out, or people call to say, "Hey, what was your experience with them?" It's just gonna damage things even further. But really, in that article, I think I tried to lay out a step-by-step process of.
Oh, did you? A plan?
When you're talking to leadership, the group, what the expectation of the back and forth, right? And just clarity on that. And there's nothing wrong with saying this is what we're working on. To be clear, there's nothing wrong with saying this is the promise of what we can be. That should be every business should be striving to be kind of the best version of themselves, and and what can you build on top of what you already have. So that's not the issue that we're talking about here, but laying that out in kind of a realistic and kind of mutually respectful way is really what it boils down to.
I've seen situations too, and I'm interested in your thoughts on this as well. I've seen situations where a promise has been made within a certain timeline. It doesn't happen. The way that the partner, the vendor, handles that conversation, it carries a lot of weight for that relationship and the ability to work with them long term. So have you seen situations where that, because stuff happens, like it's the world of development, like we understand, right? Unless it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 all these promises in a row,
you don't want it to bleed on, and you don't want it to become a habit. But if
no
you
more
come through, if you built the partnership in the right way and you have the relationship established, that's just classic business 101, right? That there's leeway. Have the conversation. Let them know what the challenges are. They probably already know. There could be challenges internally with the group as well that they're kind of facing too. So, it comes back to the transparency, the communication. The way it's communicated is key, and the partnership and relationship that was built prior to that, and hopefully there's already been some wins there. And this isn't kind of the first the first promise you've made.
Let's hope so.
That fails. So
when's that coming out?
I think soon. It's completed. It's in the hands. That's going to be with the good folks over at Group Dentistry now. Give them a little plug here with Kim and Bill over there. So it's there. It's formatted and ready to go. So it should be soon.
A lot of the promises that exist in this space and can be around integrations. Last topic is about that, and I don't think we need to spend a ton of time on this topic, but I still think it's worth at least discussing it so the market understands it and hears it. There were some companies out there that are doing interesting things to integrate with different practice management solutions. So there's APIs that basically help practice management talk to companies that do stuff that they're not necessarily very good at, like data analytics, scheduling, patient engagement. Like practice management, they're really good at certain things. They can't have a team. They got a lot of tech debt, right? That they can't necessarily, develop everything for one platform. So they rely on partners to integrate. Recently, some of the larger folks in the space have really started to crack down on the different ways that these integrations are accessed. They basically want these companies to come in through the front door and pay them a relatively significant fee. In some cases, these are earlier stage companies that are developing really innovative products. I guess this was a topic that I brought up because I don't know about you, we're sports guys, Clayton, but I'm always rooting for the 13 seed, the 12 seed in the NCAA tournament.
That was the Bills for a long time too.
I mean,
so
they have been the underdog, and I do like to root for the underdog just in general. I'm never rooting for the legacy.
Yeah.
Some people wanted they want the same 6 teams to be good every year. I want the small market underdogs. And in some cases, these underdogs, they've got funding, they've got runway, and they've got plans. When you throw a wrench in the game from a legacy practice management provider, I just feel like this type of stuff really stifles innovation. Because I love my PMS providers. They're great people. I really think they have the right intentions. But to not work with folks that are doing super innovative things that don't have 128 developers, they have like 4 that are just amazing engineers that are working on cool stuff. It frustrates me, and I think the market should understand this stuff's happening. Cease and desist letters going out, all kinds of crazy stuff.
It's tough. I mean, everybody wants to protect their IP, and it's a nuanced conversation, right?
It is.
Because it's, are they working on something behind the scenes that could be very similar, that they have a sound business rationale to kind of prevent somebody else from going in there? How innovative is the solution really, if they're already kind of replicating, or what's their rationale? I've kind of worked inside those, evil empire type of companies before in my past, some big ones. And, from the inside out, there's times when you can kind of say, oh man, we could have opened up a little bit. We could have been a little more welcoming, and it probably would have been the best thing for everyone involved, including the customer, right? The customer that we all claim to serve. And there's other times that it's, you kind of see it the other way, where it's if these bigger organizations, sometimes the PMS is an easy one, right? Because there's so much API that needs to happen there and is happening on some big levels. But if they are working on something and they are close, or they're trying to come up with a solution on their own, then it could kind of make sense there too. So I'm a little torn on this one, honestly. I like seeing the underdog too, but just because the company's larger doesn't mean they don't have the right to.
I agree.
To say, hey, we're not ready to open this up to you, but it can stifle innovation. It can do all those things you mentioned.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not saying large companies don't have the right to make money. That's definitely not what I'm saying. Like, they help the market.
Me neither.
They service 70%, 80% of however many dentists exist right now. So I'm all for it.
It'd be nice to see it be an open environment, though.
100%.
Right? I mean, just be a little more open, to be a place that we allow innovation and, you know, iron sharpens iron, where we just continue to get better based off of what everyone's doing and
Yep.
where this whole industry is progressing towards. So that's a touchy one. That's a
Yep.
touchy conversation for
I've
sure.
I've seen some earlier stage practice management companies that are starting to pop up and get funding. So they're very quiet in stealth mode at this time. I think this market now is ripe for that. An open system that provides solid APIs to work and integrate, that has AI solutions attached to it. That's a cloud-based solution. I think we might see some of these companies start to pop up that are legitimate. We'll see. It's a tough market to crack, but look, the Roman Empire existed, and it's no longer. So
Yeah, look, the market will force people in one direction or the other a lot of times. So if people are closed off and there's an upstart that's very open, you know, you could see some people's hands being forced where they'd say, okay, yeah, we see it, we get it, we're open now. We've decided to be more open, or the young upstart can take some market share in that way too. So it's, you know, I think we're ripe for a lot of continued change, more than this happened in the past 3 to 5 years, which has been a lot of change in our industry. But yep. I don't see that slowing down anytime soon.
I don't either, and you know, hopefully we'll be here to talk about it on this podcast. That's the goal here. We really want to talk about the change, talk about the stuff that's happening in our industry, give our perspective on how I see it. I'm not too concerned about this, and try not to get in any trouble. Like, you might be a little more concerned than I am, but I'm not really too concerned about getting in any trouble. But hopefully we won't get in any trouble either. And
no.
Yeah,
I think it's a good conversation. I think it's needed in the industry. More conversation, the better. I love seeing what some others are putting out there, some that we've talked about in the past, and have sparked conversation between us and sparked conversation internally, externally, at conferences. You know, I love where it's all going, and be able to really hear people's opinions on our industry, and, you know, right, wrong, agree, disagree. There's some really great perspective out there.
Yeah, nothing wrong with the viewpoint. Mm-hmm. Nothing wrong with the viewpoint. Any conferences left for you, or are you done?
I think that's about it on the year. We're very focused on the end of the year, heading into next year. So there's plenty of work to be done without a couple days away. But I always wish I could get to more. But I think that's about it. How about you?
I think, well, I'm going to Dental Leadership Summit, which is in Salt Lake down the road here in Park City.
I wish I could go to that one.
So I'm moderating a panel with some AI technology founders and CEOs. So that should be interesting.
Nice to see you getting on stage.
Yeah. I'm here for it. You know, the HR for Health, Ralph was super cool. This was kind of my idea. I'm like, hey, I think it would be interesting to have people on stage talking about like real actionable stuff that's happening in AI, because there's so much noise around it. Maybe talk about the fear a little bit too, and how some groups and dental leaders are getting past that. So my goal is to have an outcome from the conversation that people listening will have something that they can take with them the following week and the week after that is actionable, that's real.
Love it.
From the information.
Need more of it.
Yeah, I'm not asking them to just talk high level on stuff. Like, it's just real fluffy. Like, that's not the goal here. I can't control their answers, but I can certainly try and ask some questions that are directional. So yeah, I'm doing that one. I may pop by ADSO mid-market, but it's probably not.
Well, I love that, you know, about the DSO leadership meeting. I just looked through the agenda the other day. It looks impactful. It really does. I mean, there's some things, and especially that panel that you just mentioned with you guys and what you're talking about. That was one that I'm kind of looking at it from the outside, looking in, knowing I'm not going to be able to attend, and saying, man, I would really like to have heard that one.
Hopefully people stick around on Saturday at least.
Yeah, or hopefully some of these conferences, I would love an online option. You know, get some good video recording equipment, get some, make sure the microphones are working and be able to have the option to link in. I know they want people there, right? But it would be nice to even be able to access a recording.
Dude, and shout out to the DEO right now. Like, people have their opinions about the DEO. I've always had a great experience with Rachel, the team over there. I went there last week. I mean, you got the message from Izzy.
Yeah.
That was going back and forth with you.
Can't forget
it. Really, really well done. I think the members really feel like this sense of connection. Like, it's hard to explain. It's kind of one of those things if you don't experience it and don't see it. I think it's something that more conferences, regardless of size, need to try and really achieve. Is you can have a big conference, but have breakouts within similar verticals, so people that have things in common can communicate and collaborate and share stories, successes, failures, like all of those things. DEO does a really good job of that. The members feel it, and then the vendors feel it because they're getting conversions off of the conversations because there's a lot of trust that's happening inside that group. So it's interesting.
I know it looked like you guys were having a great time from the pictures I saw.
Yeah, he's a good guy, for sure. I was trying to hide. I was in the corner of this conference. It's literally like taking
hide from Izzy.
Taking a breath.
Izzy will find you.
Hey man, LinkedIn, right? I'm like, yeah. LinkedIn. How you doing? Yeah, my two front. Like, all right.
He was a fan.
Yeah, he's a fan.
I'm a fan of Izzy. I really appreciate that guy and what they're pushing to do, and just him in general.
For sure. Last thing worth chiming in on, since this is going to go out probably before the game. Bills versus Panthers is happening in 2 weeks after Buffalo's bye.
That it is.
Bills are an absolute blank show.
You guys need a rest.
They're a mess. They're terrible. I've been saying this all year. They're not very good. They're smoke and mirrors. They have the best quarterback in all of the land, and that only gets them so far, and it shows over the last 2 weeks. Do we have a prediction? Should we?
Right now, 3-3 feels like undefeated to me as a Panthers fan. So I've repeated that line over and over. 3-3 might as well be 6-0 from expectations, which I had some, but feeling pretty good right now. It's tough to make a prediction. I disagree that the Bills are not a good team. That's going to be a tough one. That's going to be a tough one for us.
You got a running back now. You have a running back.
It would be really interesting. And once we get Hubbard back, we'll have two pretty solid ones. So, we will see when we get there. Tough to make too bold of a prediction. I'm not a prediction guy. I'm just kind of basking in the moment of where we're at, and I just want to keep this momentum going. So if we can, after that game, if we're on a 4-game winning streak, you'll see a very happy Clayton Russell.
Yeah, it goes one of two ways. It's either a double-digit win for Buffalo, or they lose dramatically, and sky is falling in Western New York.
Yeah, let's go with that one. Let's go with this.
All right, man. This is good stuff.
Good chatting with you, man.
Yeah,
as always insightful stuff.
Absolutely. Look forward to the next one.
Yeah, for sure.
See ya.
All right, thanks, Matty.